everybody. I'm so excited to be here today with Joan Lachance, Michael Rodriguez, and David Rogers, who will be presenting a session at the 2025 NIALPA conference. The session title is Project Sembrar, Transforming DLBE Teacher Preparation. This interactive presentation will guide session attendees in the unique needs of preparing DLBE and DLI teachers, anchored to Project Sembrar, which is an NPD grant-funded initiative, along with the theoretical premise of collaboration in dual language education and the National Dual Language Education Teacher Preparation EMMA or EMMA standards. The session will examine ways in which collaborative practices leverage much needed support for pre and in-service DLBE and DLI teachers. So I'm super excited to be here with this team. And as we gear up for the 2025 NIALPA conference, I'm just going to ask each of our presenters what you might like listeners or viewers to know about you and your journey to this work. So we'll start with Joan.
Thanks. Thank you so much for having us. My background is that I grew up in a monolingual household. However, very early on began studying languages other than English, and fast forward decided that I really wanted to focus my career on second language acquisition, second language development. I steered into the world of dual language as a dual language parent, and also working with doctors Virginia Collier and Wayne Thomas with some of my own research projects, my own research agenda. And so, for lack of a better way of saying it, as soon as I was introduced to dual language bilingual education, I was hooked. I serve as the director of our graduate and undergraduate teaching English as a second language programs at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. However, I'm also very involved with a few projects that are hosted through Dual Language Education of New Mexico. And I love New Mexico. I think of it as my second home. Try to spend as much time there as possible to just soak up all of the culture and the language that it really provides. And then the last thing I would say is that I'm the co-author of the EMMA standards, the teacher prep standards, and really in my role at UNC Charlotte have uncovered in the last decade, little more than a decade now, the nuances that are associated with preparing dual language teachers for their actual classroom duties and the needs of the school, the needs of the community, and the needs of the students, most importantly. And so I bring my full heart into this, as shows in our logo, and I'm just super excited to work with my colleagues, David and Mike. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joan. Thanks for being here today. And thank you for all of your work. And so, Michael, can you tell us just a little bit about your background as well as just your journey to this work?
Thanks, Joby. My name is Michael Rodriguez. I'm the Executive Director for Dual Language Education of New Mexico, and I've been with the organization for about 9 years and in the Executive Director role for just about 3. And my journey with dual language bilingual education started before I even really knew what it was. Growing up in northern New Mexico, I grew up around Spanish, but was of the generation in this part of the world where we didn't speak Spanish. My mom's family was originally from the area when it was, way back when it was part of Mexico. My dad's family from West Texas and Mexico before that. But, Spanish was always something that we were around, but it was not something that we were given the opportunity to learn. Our adults usually spoke it when they didn't want us to understand or, were speaking among themselves. And when I got to the university level at my bachelor's, I realized that there was just something missing in being this, going to the University of New Mexico and being this small fish in a big pond, and really connected to my roots. And as I got into education, I eventually became an administrator and helped start 3 different dual language programs in the Santa Fe and Albuquerque areas, which is what led me to connect with Dual Language Education of New Mexico as an administrator and now as the leader. So this work is definitely very close to my heart as well, and happy to be part of all these exciting projects that are going on.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's just amazing to hear your passion for the work. And then I want to just round out our introductions with David Rogers. So would you like to just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your journey to this work as well?
Absolutely, it'd be an honor. Thank you for having us. Yes, my name is David Rogers. I've been a dual language educator my whole educator career, over 3 decades, working in dual language education specifically. When I was a new educator, I was actually a Peace Corps volunteer in South America, where I lived in a bilingual country that only educated their children, their young people, through Castellano or Spanish. Yet the community spoke the indigenous language of Guarani, and it was there that I just made some observations that impacted my new career as an educator. That said, it really was an injustice for us just to expect our students to be educated in one language, especially when we were not allowing them to utilize what they had been already educated in their home language. And so that was sort of the beginning of things in the late 80s, and came back to the US, finished my teaching certificate program, and got involved with dual language education. I've been a teacher, a program coordinator, a principal, and many people know me as a founding member of dual language education of New Mexico, as well as the original planning committee for the La Cosecha conference that's held each year. And now the many projects I've been able to be involved with over the years, there is the Emma standards. There is this first historic set of national teacher preparation standards specifically for dual language educators. I'm very proud to be a part of this. And now, of course, Project Sembrado, which has given us a little fuel in the tank to take these standards and see what we can do to strengthen and extend educator preparation programs in different parts of our country. So I'm honored to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the introductions and just a little bit about your backgrounds and all of your journeys to the work. I want to just ask one of you to give us a little sneak peek into what the NYELPA attendees have to look forward to at your session without giving away all the details.
Joan, you wrote the darn title and descriptor.
Okay, I'll do my best to give a sneak peek. It's a very unique project that involves a team of incredibly talented higher education partners, incredibly talented organization representatives, both from the New Mexico side of the United States and the New England side of the United States. So our project includes Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and, as I said, New Mexico. The exciting part of what the participants will learn is how we are using the common framework of the Emma standards to branch out and then really tailor make the way those standards are used to support the notion of supporting teachers in the field, right? And coming at this through the lens of collaboration and mentorship, which is a little different than directly delivering professional development for classroom teachers. What we're aiming for is to create this web of impact, right? This sphere of impact, and look at how the Emma standards can be used in varying contexts, whether you are an in-service teacher, a pre-service teacher, and who the people are in your school building, in your brick and mortar place of work, for lack of a better way of saying that, that need help. These are boots on the ground, classroom strategies, how language works together. It's all anchored to the 6 Emma standards. I don't know. What else would you guys add? I know you said for one of us, but I feel like we're a trio. It's hard to. What can you add, David? Michael?
Well, our New England partners, of course, have had so much to do with putting this Project Sembrado together, conceptualizing it. But I know that one of the reasons why Dual Language of New Mexico was so interested in being involved is because this educator preparation, or the support that Joan refers to, that we'll be discussing, the supports for pre and in-service teachers, includes a grow your own sort of approach, right? And what that means to us in New Mexico, and specifically in northern New Mexico, is through this project, we're going to be looking for new teachers amongst our paraprofessionals and educator assistants that are in the schools already, community members, high school graduates who have received the seal of biliteracy that sort of would make for great dual language educators. Basically, we're looking to the community because we know from the research and our own experience that the best teachers of our kids are those who come from the communities where our students reside. They know the students' cultural backgrounds. They know their traditions, the customs. They know the language of the students that's being used in the community, in the home. And so that's why we're very excited about that. And we're going to be discussing that in our presentation at NAILPA.
And just to give that practitioner connection, having started 3 different dual language programs and knowing what it takes for your program to be sustainable and quality, you have to have those teachers who really get it, right? You can be a bilingual teacher, but being a dual language bilingual education teacher is very different, and it's a huge commitment. So by projects like Project Sembrar, we're trying to increase the number of teachers that are willing, that are prepared to walk into these classrooms and make a difference across the country. In my position, I've been able to also work with SEAs and LEAs through dual language education in New Mexico in helping them to decide where to best start. And we hear it all over the country. There's a shortage and there's a need for people who truly get it.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's definitely a shortage. And I'm wondering, just listening to sort of the teaser about what folks are going to get at the session, I'm just curious, if someone doesn't have a current dual language program, or maybe that's not something their district is looking into, would the session still be beneficial for them to come and just listen in and just really think about how the strategies that you're focusing on, which are really for that dual language and bilingual education classroom, would there be benefit for others who don't currently have a program to come and just listen in your session?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think while everything we're doing is anchored to teacher prep for dual language, what we know is that dual language teachers are superstars who can model things, mentoring and other types of pedagogical approaches that work for all kids, whether they're in a dual language program or not. And we might just get lucky and have them, come over to the side of where we are if they're considering it, or maybe they'll learn something new and they hadn't thought about considering it, and now they would. So absolutely, wherever we can plant seeds, we're super excited to do that.
Awesome. I absolutely love that. So in your presentation, I know you're going to discuss the importance of collaboration in dual language education. How does fostering this type of collaboration among your pre-service and in-service teachers contribute to their professional growth? And what outcomes can we expect from these collaborative practices in the real world sort of classroom setting?
That's a great 2-part question. I'm happy to go there, or if any of you want to chime in.
Well, I just think, as far as teaser and coming here more, we're going to be talking about something called communities of practice. I mean, as Mike was saying, you can't just be, you might be a bilingual educator, but that's a little bit different than being an effective dual language education. You got to get it. You need to understand quite a bit. You need to understand biliteracy. You need to understand the sociocultural underpinnings of what our kids need in the classroom and such. But what Project Sembrar and any school can benefit from understanding and learning alongside of us in this project is really tries to build capacity as close to the classroom as possible, where teachers not only are getting, let's say, support from a university professor, for example, but they need to be plugged into a professional community where they have a place to go to constantly share what seems to be coming out as a promising practice, so they can get the validation and maybe further support to take that further, or with their hard questions, I just don't get this yet. And so they need to be a part of a community where they can start to find maybe some suggestions and some additional supports. So we're going to talk that benefits just about anybody. So that is what we're going to be talking about in this presentation. Is an important part of this is developing what we call a community of practice with players from the university, who are definitely responsible for pre-service teaching, teacher preparation, as well as mentor leaders at the site, as well as those teachers that may not yet be credentialed or endorsed and are working towards that, as well as most importantly, improving their practice so they're effective and they know that they're effective in the classroom with their instruction.
And one of the key things in developing sustainable programs is something that David repeated over and over, which is community. So in order for your students to get the maximum benefit, in order for your program to be sustainable and get the maximum benefit and those long-term outcomes that we know are possible, your program has to be grounded in the community of that school. And what better way to do that than to grow your own with people who represent the community, who represent those students, and truly understand how that local context fits into the standards and what it really takes.
The other thing I would add, Joby, is over time, we've also learned through the research of many scholars, I'll mention John Spencer as one of them out of Stanford, is that there's a sincere difference between cooperation and collaboration. Mm-hmm. And what we're looking for inside a community of practice is for people to develop the relationships that they need to actually have authentic collaborative practices. Mm-hmm. Because that's how we grow. You asked about, the impact for teachers. That's how teachers are able to grow in their practices and stretch themselves, because there's enough trust and vulnerability in a collaborative situation that's where we go. That's how we share leadership and move forward.
And lots of times dual language bilingual teachers feel isolated. Yes. So by creating this community for them, they now have people who are in the same situation and can bounce ideas and generate new ones together.
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially when you're starting a new program. Sometimes you only have a couple of bilingual teachers to get started, right? As you're trying to grow it across, grade bands and grade levels and sort of scale it up. Sometimes you only have one or two bilingual teachers in a district when you're first starting a program. So that can be very isolating. So it sounds like Project Sembrar is a game changer in teacher preparation for dual language and bilingual education. And I'm super excited to learn more about it. Also, really interested in hearing more about the Emma standards. I know you're going to talk about sort of the role that they play in teacher preparation and dual language education, but what can you tell us here today about the practical strategies that teachers are going to be able to take away from this session as it relates to implementing these Emma standards?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks so much for asking. There are 6 standards that range from understanding how 2 languages work together for biliteracy, multilingual, multiliteracy development, including sociocultural competence, instructional strategies, lesson design and delivery, things that are attached to authentic assessment. And then the standards move into program design and advocacy. And within each of those 6 standards, there are what we call subcomponents that really break down what a dual language bilingual education teacher might need to learn about, either while they're teaching or as if they're in-service teachers, or before they ever enter the dual language setting if they are pre-service teachers. And each of the 6 standards has its own sort of what we would call a literature review in higher education. So it's all anchored to both current and empirical theory. And then our main goal with these standards is to bring them to life through Project Sembrar and have online modules where mentor leaders are learning about these competencies. And then right away, there's an element of application. So it's learning, applying, always back and forth in a real world context.
Awesome. So as we wrap up our time together today, I'm going to give each of you sort of the last word. And I'm just going to ask you, what advice would you offer to educators and institutions who are just beginning to explore dual language teacher preparation?
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in there. I mean, I just think that the big piece of advice here is collaboration. I mean, you can't do it all on your own. And so you need to be engaged with a larger community of folks, like-minded folks who are interested in bringing dual language education to life and delivering on the promise of pre-K higher ed, dual language education all the way through higher ed. So that would be my main advice. And I think Project Sembrar will give you some pointers on how you might go about doing that.
Thanks, David.
I know that there's lots of districts that will be coming to the NALPA conference who don't necessarily have dual language programs, but being grounded in these standards really helps people to get an understanding of what it is that those multilingual learners truly need in any type of educational environment. So I would encourage people to come to our session, learn what you can, ask plenty of questions. You're going to be surrounded by people that have already figured out some of the things that you're trying to manage. And it's an opportunity to really grow and see what's possible as a district.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. How about you, Joan? You get the last word.
I love it. And just to echo my colleagues and dear friends, it sounds very simple, but go for it. There are lots of supportive structures in place to help people start where they need to start. And there's a supportive community of practice within our field. We want people to expand as much as possible. So I think that's it. Just try it, work with each other, collaborate, and know that dual language education is the best approach on the planet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, team. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in person at the conference in February. It's hard to believe it's coming up just next week, but I want to thank everyone for watching or listening. And then I just want to remind you, be sure to keep following and learning along with all of us here at NIALPA.